Hi guys, whilst recording this episode on Tuesday evening, we encountered some issues where we lost a small portion of the pod. Due to it containing some of your questions, we felt it was important to get it right, so we recorded the segment with James on Wednesday morning. This will be why you will see in the video things might be slightly different. On this week's FPL Happy Hour,
The answer is no.
who's best to have, Dyer or Davis? Hello and welcome to the 7th episode of our new podcast, FPL Happy Hour, with me, Sham, otherwise known as FPL 2 Guys 1 Cup on Twitter.
And me, Rob, otherwise known as FPL Panda.
Rob, on tonight's episode, we have a very special guest.
Ooh.
Indeed. The man that brought our love affair together. And if it weren't for us subscribing to his Patreon, we may well not have started this pod. He is one half of the third best fantasy football podcast in the world, producing 10 podcasts a week, a Twitter follower and boasting over 23,000 followers. During lockdown 1, he hosted the Champman FPL Live, bringing the Champman community live score updates with his charismatic personality. One of the greatest football analytic minds I've ever met or heard speak about football, with a football memory that I just don't understand how he does it. One of the best FPL strategists in the community, an avid Spurs season ticket holder, and an all-round great bloke and our good friend. And if you haven't guessed who it is yet, some of his famous phrases include Riverside motherfuckers, Q Music manchild, and Up Yours Gooners. It is the one and only James from Planet FPL. James, how are you, mate?
Hello, lads. I'm very well. Thanks for having us on. I don't know what to say after that intro, mate. Jesus. I mean, the first thing to say is, you nutter. Presumably, you've got my name in the bio, so they already know who's coming on the podcast.
Mate, I tried to make it dramatic, you know?
Yeah, but they can see it, I'm going to guess. Or you're just going to leave me out your bio? Well, so if this podcast is shit, it's my fault anyway, because I created this love affair, apparently.
Basically, mate.
Thanks for having us on, guys. Pleasure.
Good stuff. Well, I guess let's get stuck in. James, first off, listeners may not have heard of you before, and if they haven't, I don't know what planet they're living on, but I can't imagine
there's FPL, obviously.
I can't imagine that there aren't many that haven't heard of you. So we've got a few getting to know you questions. Okay.
Uh-oh.
So the first one, and I know you're a massive Spurs fan, so you'll be really best placed to answer this.
The answer is no.
Who's best to have, Dyer or Davis?
As you were told, mate, the amount of questions I'm getting, which Spurs defensive player is nailed? I got an advice for your listeners. Don't bother.
All right. Yeah. Next question. Your greatest footballing memory?
Oh, that's a great question. I think it's got to be Ajax.
Yeah, I thought so.
I was blessed to be in Amsterdam in the stadium that night. So yeah, that I think that tops any of the trophies. I think it has to be that. Okay.
If you could have any player in the world at Spurs right now, who would it be?
Any player in the world?
Any player in the world.
I just like a few good players. Any player. It'd be great to see Messi for a couple of years, wouldn't it? Barca can't afford his wages. I don't suppose we can either. Yes. You'd have to take Messi for a couple of years still, I think.
Okay.
Mbappe, I feel like might be a difference maker for us, possibly.
But just to say Messi has played for Tottenham would be something, right?
Absolutely. I was blessed to see him live at Wembley against Tottenham a couple of years ago. He destroyed us, but he was worth going to watch. He's absolutely brilliant.
And the final question is, what rank will you finish in FPL this season?
Oh, probably worse than you two. Somewhere better than my pod partner, Suj. That's certainty.
Well, mate, he beat you last year, didn't he?
Yeah, listen, you know last season's got an asterisk on it anyway. It doesn't I'll probably 100k-ish. I'll probably be surprised if I finish in the top 100k, but I won't be. That's part of course of me. I think somewhere between 100 and 200k probably is realistic.
Okay,
it's not what I want, but it's realistic.
Fair enough. Okay, so let's start the pod then. Let's look back at our teams. Well, not that we haven't started already, but you know, let's look back at last week and see how we did. We've got quite a meaty pod tonight. We'll be talking FPL strategy for the next few game weeks, teams to targets, and then some questions from you guys. Rob, should we look at whose team do you want to look at first?
Well, we'll save the best till last, yeah?
Okay. All right, James, you go first.
It's charming, isn't it? I might have known I'd come here and get stitched up. This is me, is it?
Yeah, so this is your team. So talk to us. What did you do last week? What moves did you make, and how are you looking so far?
I made a big transfer last week. Came in, got some points on my bench. Ezri Konsa came in for the stricken James Justin. This is a forward-thinking transfer for doubles and blanks. Gundogan captain has obviously meant it's been quite a good week. I'm on Sufal, obviously come off the bench for me for Antonio, so it'd be 86 for me with 4 to go, because obviously Ben Mee won't play for Burnley on Wednesday night. So, and I presume Gundogan won't play either. So Diaz, Stones, Areola and Lookman for me still to go. So to be honest, you're hard pressed not to see the City clean sheet at the moment, aren't you? It's every chance that'll push past 100.
Are you happy with the game week?
Which is probably just going to be a green arrow as it stands, which is a bit mad.
Were there any moves that you kind of thought, oh, I wish I made it, and I would have, like, was there any 50-50 calls?
No. I was quite happy with the team. I brought Konsa in and left him second sub. I brought Ben Mee in the week before, left him a second sub the previous week. So for me, it's about, I'm not looking to use a chip other than triple captaincy in 26. I'm looking to hold on to the wild card to around about 31. So for me, it's about manoeuvring now. So a lot of the moves are strategic. So quite happy with the team. I was able to use Lookman this week as part of a double game week, whereas normally you'd probably sit third sub or so. So what happens for me next is probably quite dependent on whether Fulham have a double or not in 26. If they do, I've got 9 doublers currently. If they don't, I've got 7. So what I do next is rather dependent on that. My instinct is that Tottenham are more likely to play Southampton, but it could be Fulham.
Okay, dope. Well, should we move on to my team then, Rob?
Yeah, let's go on to your
one. So I was going to have a bit of a rant today, but it's worked out okay. So why I was going to have a bit of a rant? I brought in Mee and Pope. And the reason why I brought in Mee over Lowton was because of his attacking potential. And before the gate, so I brought them both in and captained Pope because I didn't think Gundogan would haul. And I sent the team to Rob and I said, right, I'm starting Barnes over Bamford. And he goes, oh, are you sure? I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. And in fairness, you got that right. It was a high-scoring game.
It was a high-scoring game.
It was high-scoring, yep. And then I was like, okay, fine, I'll start Bamford. And then Barnes hauls against Liverpool, and I'm fucking fuming because I've got him first sub. And then the Burnley game starts, and then Mee gets pulled off, and Lowton fucking scores. And I'm literally, my Saturday was ruined. I was so annoyed, even though I had the Pope captaincy. And then Gundogan got his 19 points, and I was fuming. And even though I had Gundogan, but yeah, I calmed down afterwards after Antonio was rested, and I will now get the auto sub for Barnes for Antonio. So I'm currently on 79 plus 12 to come off the bench. So that's 91. And got Stones, Cancelo, Pope captain to play. Mee's obviously not going to play, and I don't think Gundogan's playing either. So overall, it was okay. Although I did have, and you both said, I think on one of your pods, James, you said Martinez could outscore Pope, and actually might do if they don't keep a clean sheet tomorrow night. He will. So I've got Martinez first on my goalkeeper bench, which is a bit annoying, but yeah.
And Areola might yet outscore both of them.
Yeah,
I've got a funny feeling. I've got a funny feeling that Fulham Burnley game, I think it could be 1-0 Fulham.
I can see Fulham winning now with Ben Mee out. You only have to look at Burnley's results in the first 6 or 7 this season without Ben Mee. Basically transformed from Mee back in the team from relegation certs to what would be mid-table form. So the thing is, when Mee misses, it throws Tarkowski out as well, because Tarkowski then has to go and cover on the left side because Kevin Long can't play there. He's average. Presumably he plays right-sided centre-half. And it's just literally that one change really throws Burnley out defensively. So I wouldn't be sitting there counting the points for Loughton's, Mees, Popes. Obviously, me won't play. Like you, Rob, I do think there's a genuine chance Fulham will win on Wednesday night.
I thought it was very much in Burnley's favour until we've seen how good Fulham have been the last couple of weeks. And then, me getting injured, it kind of just throws it a bit up in the air. But we shall see. Right, shall we have a look at...
Have a look at your team and your gloating bastard.
Average team for the week. So, my current score at the moment is 105 points with the Gundogan, Hall, Salah scored, Bruno scored, Ings scored, Loughton jumped in on the bus and scored as well.
But stop all that, Rob. Jack Grealish got a yellow card.
But Jack Grealish let the team down. He could have had a 3-pointer there, and he only got me 2. Really happy with the week, but I think I'm very much in the same boat as James at the moment. Like I only brought Grealish in because of the potential for doubles and the fact that he plays in game week 29. Well, we hope he plays in 29. And so I had 2 free transfers. I could have sat there and rolled, and I was forced to bring in Grealish for it's so long ago now. I bought him in for Barnes. Yeah. So it was kind of strategic move, like looking forward. I couldn't. There was no one else in my team that I thought, I really want to take this person out now. Even with Barnes, I thought I was looking at the potential double in 26 they could have and thinking, I kind of want to keep him. But you just don't want to be burning a transfer at the moment. I'm fairly happy. At the moment, looking like it's about 120k rank rise, knocking on the door of the top 100k, which, if someone told me that on Saturday morning, I would have bit their hand off. I was surprised to see this afternoon a lot of people very negative about their Gundogan, like him being probably ruled out for tomorrow night, and people that captained him annoyed about it. Whereas I'm pretty ecstatic that, his main objective this week for me was to outscore Bruno. As long as he outscores Bruno, I'm happy. And he's completed that. He's passed it with flying colours, and I can kind of take those 38 points, stick them in my pocket, and hope to God that he's fit for the weekend. So it doesn't. I think I'm happy with the team moving forward, but ideally I'd rather he's fit and ready to go for the weekend. But all in all, good week with Diaz and Stones and Loughton still to play.
Jammy bastard.
Yeah, hopefully Diaz and Stones can both pick up clean sheets. It'd be nice for a 0-0 tomorrow night, but I'm not holding my hopes up for anything from Loughton. Again, he's just someone else as well that's just outperformed anything that I could ever expect from him, scoring his first goal in 50 years.
His XG for the previous 4 seasons was 0.8.
Over the whole season.
To be fair, what was the XG on his goal? Because it was some finish.
I don't know, but fucking 4 seasons 0.8, and then he scores in a double game week.
Damn, what are you so upset for?
No, because I want to fucking beat Rob, and he's getting fucking Loughton.
So what's the rank for you, Sham? At the moment, what's the rank?
My rank is 420k, but then obviously I've got Barnes coming in, so I think it's like 350 if you include that. So I think similar to you,
very
James.
similar to me, yeah.
Yeah,
It's roughly where I am.
All right, so let's go through the first of our hot topic, and it's one thing that a lot of people are talking about at the moment, and that's strategy for the next few game weeks. And you two are best placed to talk about this.
I'm not
So
best
what do
placed.
we do
He's
in
best placed.
James? You know, you've got your planner, and James has got his planner. So you guys, I think, are in a really good position to talk about this. So what do we do in different scenarios? Talk through us what the strategy looks like at the moment. What are the doubles looking like? James, I'll let you go first, mate.
What you want to know, mate? What we're looking at potentially, or
yeah, what's the current
Okay.
state of play?
So we obviously had 7 games postponed from game week 29, with 3 remaining games being Brighton against Newcastle, Fulham against Leeds, and West Ham against Arsenal. We know those 3 games will happen. There is highly likely to be one other fixture added to 29, which is Aston Villa against Tottenham. The reason for that being both 2 teams are out of the FA Cup. Tottenham have 3 games to rearrange, although so do Aston Villa now as well. It just makes perfect logical sense, particularly because Tottenham are still in Europe currently, that Villa and Tottenham will go into 29. So the majority of the rest of the 29 fixtures will be brought forward to the midweek after game week 26 weekend. That midweek is free for fixtures. The reason they can't go further ahead to 32 or 37, which are also available midweeks, they have to have contingencies for the potential postponements there for the FA Cup semi-finals, which are the weekend of 32, and the FA Cup final itself the weekend of 37. So particularly for the European teams, we can be extremely confident that their doubles will be brought forward to 26. So Burnley against Leicester, Crystal Palace against Manchester United, Liverpool and Chelsea, just about certainties to go into 26, given obviously those respective teams' doubles. Tottenham is certainly going to have a double in 26 as well because of their fixture headache. If we assume that Aston Villa and Tottenham is going to go into 29, it means Tottenham will play either Southampton or Fulham, as well as Burnley in game week 26. I think it's slightly more likely that Tottenham will play Southampton, but there's not a lot in it, and it's an attractive looking double game week for the likes of Kane and Son, however it falls. Villa and Everton are also likely to have fixtures in 26. That's a little bit harder to call. My instinct is that they will play each other from the rearranged game from when Aston Villa had the COVID outbreak. But equally, Villa could play Sheffield United and Everton could play West Brom, their actual physical rearranged games from 29. I believe from TV purposes and the fact they can only put one Tuesday night fixture on in that midweek of 26, that we're more likely to see less fixtures rather than more. My instinct is that the Sheffield United, Villa, West Brom, Everton rearrangements are likely to be played, most likely, I think, in 28, which would give Villa and Everton extremely attractive doubles if that's what happens. And I think I've earmarked it as 28 as the most likely because it's the most attractive on paper. Villa would have Newcastle and Sheffield United both away in 28, and Everton would have Burnley at home and West Bromwich Albion away. Now, those fixtures, the rearrangements, particularly for Aston Villa and Everton, in theory could be played later in the season. They could be in game week 31, game week 34. They can be at random points because none of the teams involved in the rearrangements are competing in Europe. Essentially, they could go anywhere. But I think we've seen the precedent from the Burnley versus Fulham rearrangement this week and Leeds versus Southampton next week, which ironically could have fit into 26 and with no problem at all, that Leeds Southampton fixture. That there was a precedent to try and get games played early, just in case we suffer some sort of outbreak with COVID somewhere, to leave a little bit of contingency, because the Premier League cannot move backwards. The final game day 38, the Europa League final was 3 days later. The Champions League final was 6 days later. So there is no contingency to be moving the Premier League back to later if we have to shut down or anything like that. So the leaving those midweeks free gives the opportunity if something goes wrong.
Okay. That's a good summary. Is there anything else you want to add on that? Just trying to take it all in. It's a lot of information, isn't it?
The best thing you can do, listen to my podcast from last week. No, is just be aware of the possibilities. I think the European teams is almost certain to double in 26. Those have had the 29 postponed. That's the main thing to know. And just be aware that the other possibilities are open. So like I said, I think Villa and Everton could both double in 26 and 28. it's possible that Southampton could double in 25, 26 and 27, because Southampton also have a fixture to rearrange with Manchester City, and that's highly likely to go into 27, whereas I think City and Wolves is likely to go into 26. So that would give Southampton 3 doubles in a row, the first of which is obviously this forthcoming game week. But it could be they don't double in 26. It might be that it's 32. It might be something else. So that's why the big advice is don't make any early transfers, because we are likely to get a large chunk of these fixture announcements before the game week starts.
Okay. Rob, before we move on to kind of navigating the blanks and things, is there anything you wanted to add on that?
No, I think James has pretty much covered absolutely everything, and it's a bit of a minefield at the moment. I know that yourself, James, and Ben Crellin, and Lego Mane, Talo Nadim, you're all Ian Parrin as well. You're all at each other on Twitter, and like the threads are just
in a nice way, though.
Yeah. But yeah, and the threads are just fascinating, but also just, I mean, I started something last night and I had to stop reading through it and kind of sit there in front of the laptop and just go little bit by little bit, until I came up with what those that are viewing on YouTube can see now, and it's it's a bit of a minefield, but yeah, like you say, with the European teams, there's nowhere else that they could guarantee like now that they'd have space later in the season to fit the game. So it makes sense. Put it now in 26, where they know that they'll be able to fit it in. Otherwise, it's just going to leave the Premier League with an absolute headache at the end, towards the back end of the season, where they won't have the space, and they'll have teams arguing that they don't want to play 3 times in 6-7 days, which is what they'd need teams to be doing, and there's just not the time or space to do it. So
I guess in terms of navigation then, so James, let's talk about your scenario. So you've just got the triple captain and wildcard left, is that right? Yeah. So what's your thoughts in terms of the best way to navigate these then, to, I guess, take advantage of the situation?
Well, first thing is obviously every situation is circumstantial to everybody's own situation. So you could be sitting there with all the chips left, but if you're looking at 26 now and you've got a team full of, as kind of Rob's highlighting on the screen, like 3 Arsenal players, 3 Brighton players, for whatever reason, you're not going to. But if you did, you're obviously not looking very well set for 26. You're probably looking at wildcarding now. So for me, ideally, what I want to do is get to 26 without using that wildcard. I don't need to get to 15 doublers because I used the bench boost in 19. So I need 11. As I said, if Fulham double, I'm on 9 with 3 free transfers left because I've got 2 currently. So that would put me in a very comfortable position. So using a wild card in my circumstance, I feel like would be the wrong thing to do. Also, the idea that Villa and Tottenham's likely to get added to 29 makes the manoeuvre from 26 onto 29 a lot easier. We can target Martinez, Grealish, Watkins, Kane, Son, and they cover us not just in the double, but also the blank. We don't normally have this luxury. We normally have clubs who double and then blank, and that's where the free hit comes in particularly handy. So the free hit is not as necessary for many in 29 as it previously would have been. So my idea, I've obviously used it, so it makes no difference for me in any case. My idea is to wildcard in game week 31, where there's a big fixture swing from the clubs who play in 29 to then what they have. So the reason not to do it straight afterwards, I'll highlight 3 examples for you. So Villa, Tottenham and Leeds, we assume that Villa, Tottenham fixture goes into 29, and they'll be probably the 3 most popular teams leading up to that blank. You think of Leeds, the double now, Dallas, Rafinha, Bamford, popular, Villa, obviously, Kane and Son. So 3 hit teams for 29, plus teams that carry through, are going to carry quite a chunk of 8 players from those 3 teams, for example. Villa in game week 30 host Fulham. Tottenham go to Newcastle, and Leeds have Sheffield United at home. So there's no need to even wildcard straight. Ordinarily, you'd say you dead end into 29, wildcard straight off it. But because of those 3 teams and the fixtures they have afterwards, it makes me feel like you can carry through 1 extra week and then wildcard in 31 with some really nice fixture swings for teams that perhaps don't appeal for us now. So Wolves have a brilliant run of 5 fixtures. Arsenal won my fixture tracker have the best running from game week 31 onwards. And at the moment, because they don't double in 26, teams like Arsenal and Wolves just wouldn't appeal to me at all. I don't think anybody's decided, Aubameyang scored a hat-trick last week, I'm going to go and buy him this week. But cheap options in the running like Smith Rowe, Odegaard, Saka, Aubameyang, Kieran Tierney could all be good options for the running. Wolves, Neto, a defensive one, potentially, if they've sorted themselves out by then. So my intention is to wildcard in 31, but that won't be the same for everybody. And it's not wrong if you wildcard now, or even a wildcard in 26 to build to 29 is one option. Perhaps if you're worried that you don't have the free hit, that's a different option. The issue with doing that is currently bench boost, if you still have it, is definitely best to be used in 26. And there's a strong case to argue that triple captain is as well, which obviously if you wildcard, you can't use either of them in 26.
Okay. Well, we've got a couple of questions on strategy. So we've got one from Sizzlers at FPL SMR. So simple question, really. How to navigate the remainder of the season without any chips?
Pray.
So target... No, but you can. You can. That you've got certain players who are premium and cheaper assets who you're happy to keep. So if you've got an Emi Martinez in goal, you're probably happy to keep. I wouldn't be mucking around with goalkeepers if they're playing and you're happy with them. If you've got Brunos and Salahs and the likes consistent, the Man City guys, okay, they're going to blank in game week 33, but consistent. Hold on to them, generally speaking, plus likely doubles 26, 27. The immediate teams to target are those who are going to double and cover the blank in terms of movement. So this week, in theory, would be target Leeds. But you can also factor in that Southampton, unknown yet, could walk into 3 doubles consecutively. And then the obvious teams in 26, or you can prep for it now, obviously. Aston Villa and Tottenham was already highlighted. So they're your immediate targets. And to be honest, if you just target Villa, Tottenham and Leeds over the next 3 or 4 weeks, that's going to cover you through most of the doubles and the blank of 29. Then you move away. Then you look at going different and targeting in the end. Perhaps Arsenal, Wolves, Liverpool's another one who will come back round. They've got a decent run in potentially. They would be particularly interesting if they were out of the Champions League, for example. So it can definitely be done. This is actually easier to manoeuvre than it has been in previous years.
Okay. Anything to add on that, Rob?
No, yeah, I think you kind of have to pick who you want to target. I mean, even those that like myself that aiming to wildcard on the back end of the blank, and I've thought about actually waiting to use my wildcard after 30. We were looking at after 33 and really attacking those last 4 or 5 game weeks. But yeah, those that I'd say I'm kind of in the same boat as that, where I haven't got any chips. I've got my triple captain, but I want to really dial into those 29 fixtures. But whilst doing that, also trying to select 1 week at a time someone that's going to pick me up some points, but also that play in 29. You kind of you might have to look for a bit of value. You might end up having to drop a player that you might not want to at some point, like I did last week with Barnes for Grealish. But that's swings and roundabouts really. Like I got rid of Barnes, who could have hauled, but I've still got a nice amount of points sitting there, and you're going to have to take those blows as well as. But remember that in 29 you're going to make those gains because you're going to have 11 or 10 or 11 out there, and you'd have only taken a 4-point hit. And there'll be some teams out there that are taking big hits over the next few weeks because they'll be so narrow-minded into all double game week, and so they'll be taking like -8s and -12s, concentrating on double game weeks. Which, it's just you try and select the ones you want to target rather than getting FOMO of missing out on all the other ones that are just unreachable.
we've got a question from Andy Mack, and I guess this is specific to strategy around, how many doublers and stuff to have. So his at Maxters, is it important to load up on 15 double game week players in 26 to maximize the bench boost and ignore blank game week 29 players, or find a balance of single game week players to cover later weeks to minimize future hits and accept a lower bench boost ceiling? James?
Ideally, you want the 15 doublers, but it's not essential. I mean, if you end up going into that game week because you want to get the double now of Bamford and Rafinha, and they've still got Villa at home in 26, which I suspect could be quite an open fixture, then that's fine, isn't it? You can. I think we get stuck on that where we look beyond the single game week fixtures. What I would say is there aren't too many in 26 who have the single that overly appeal. I think Arsenal don't appeal massively as they've got Leicester away. I mean, you wouldn't have Sheffield United or Newcastle assets, but they've got difficult fixtures. West Brom again, you've got Brighton. If you had Johnson, you're not going to pick him over a doubler. West Ham's the obvious one to mention because there will obviously be a lot of people with Soufals, Cresswells, Součeks, Antonios. They've got Manchester City away. So they're the one you have to be really conscious. I wouldn't.
Easy fixture, mate.
Yeah, of course, we know that for West Ham, obviously. They're the ones. So there's a good chance that my bench in 26, and bear in mind I don't have the bench boost, could in theory be Antonio, Souček, and Soufal. Now, if that was my bench going into 26, I wouldn't want to bench boost that away to Manchester City. In spite of the fact they're all good assets, you'd have to look at the fact that it's Manchester City and go, that's not for me. So one of the things you can do as a bit of advice is kind of look across a longer period. So if you look at the period of 25 to 29, in theory, across the 5 weeks, if you had single game week players all the way through, didn't use any chips, you've got 60 fixtures. 12 times 5. We say 12 because obviously you've got a captain in each week. So your effective 11th player doubles twice. So you've got 12 players every week. So if you start on that blank canvas of 60 fixtures across the 5 weeks, then add on your double game week players and look at potential moves that you're going to make and see where you add and lose fixtures. And obviously, if that works for you from a bench boost perspective, obviously, if you add 4 players off your bench and they all double, you're adding 8 fixtures to your potential. So that's something to bear in mind. I mean, in theory, like I said, if you had single game week players all the way through, and even if you had 11 in 29, it's 60 fixtures. There's ways to maneuver this quite comfortably if you've got all the chips with bench boost, triple captain, etc. You can be looking at around 90 fixtures over the next 5 game weeks. That's possible. And then the advantage you've got is huge.
How do we work out, though, what is the right amount to have? So, for example, in 26, where you don't have, so I think all 3 of us are in a similar situation. I've got a wild card and triple captain, and that's it. Is 9 doublers enough? Is 10? Is 11? That way you're looking at in a 5 week block. What's kind of the number that you're like, okay, I'm happy with this?
I think it's more about the fixtures, isn't it? So again, to use the highlight of the West Ham players, you don't want to bench boost that with single game week players. If it's Leeds players against Aston Villa, I think that's a little bit more reasonable. I would look at it at the moment, and personally, the only single game week players I think I would be happy to have in 26 is the Leeds players. One of the benefit of them is, you're carrying them to 29 if you don't want a free hit, and you're about to come off a double with them as well. You're not buying them in 26. You're going to have them now for this double. So it's more the who, it's not the how many. It's a regular question. How many doublers is right for a bench boost? Do I need to have 13 players? Do I need to have 14? Well, my case would be if you've got 12 and you've got 3 Leeds players, that's all right for a bench boost. That's going to look strong. If you're sitting there with Dallas, Rafinha and Bamford on your bench and you've got a goalkeeper that's also got a double, that looks strong enough to bench boost it, in my opinion. So it's more the who rather than the how many.
I mean, let's be honest, it'll outscore our bench boost from earlier this season, Sham.
Yeah, 6.
So you got 6?
6.
I think I got 8.
Piss take.
Yeah. Do you know what? It's hard work at the moment to get like less than that.
Yeah, I know. Would have been better off any of these weeks. I'd been better off. Piss take. is there anything else, Rob, in terms of, before we move on to kind of what teams and players to target, is there anything from a strategy point of view around how to navigate that you think we should cover?
No, I think we've covered it all really. But yeah, it's at the moment, like right now, we're recording on Tuesday evening. It's everything is still very much in the air, and this is kind of like a very broad look at it, because on tomorrow, Wednesday afternoon, Thursday afternoon, even as late as Friday afternoon, that fixture announcement could happen, and then it could be completely different to what we imagine it could be. This is kind of as close as prediction as we can get to. So yeah, it's just waiting. Don't do it. Don't do anything, and wait it out. Yeah, hold that trigger finger, because when that news
The
comes,
prediction models are going to be very close. No
Yeah.
one's going to be far wide of the mark here. Like Tottenham are almost certainly going to play 26. It's just a case of if it's Southampton, Fulham. Villa and Everton are the two where there are question marks. But I still think it's more the question mark of do they play each other or West Brom and Sheffield United, respectively. And the biggest and most interesting aspect for me is what happens with the spare fixture for both of them. Like that 28, those potential doubles for those two teams are absurd. That would potentially change even maybe triple captain thinking. You might think right now, Calvert-Lewin's been doing my head in. Burnley at home and West Bromwich Albion away, if that happens in 28, would be an amazing opportunity. Even Villa, Newcastle away, Sheffield United away. It's a great double, isn't it? So Everton feels like the hidden one at the moment, where I've been advising people this all week, been saying, oh, I need to get rid of Dean, I'm frustrated. I get that. Fulham at home, you're disappointed. But they could have another two doubles to come in the next 4 game weeks. And the second one, if it lands that way in 28, would be, I mean, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful. You would, if you at that point, if Villa and Everton have those doubles in 28 potentially against Sheffield United and West Brom rather than against each other, you would start thinking about 29. Yeah, sod it, I'll have 7 players in 29 because the double then takes priority. Has to.
Yeah, I'd probably bring in that extra Everton player.
But the reason why, in terms of the teams to target, this is even more reason why Villa are the number one choice in terms of who to target. Now, if you're in that blessed position where you're already sitting there with Grealish, Watkins, and Martinez, which I imagine a number of people will be, then smile and crack on. That allows you luxury moves that perhaps other people can't move, like a Stones to a Cancelo or a Foden to a Gundogan, whereas a lot of other people will probably be sitting on their 2 or 3 Manchester City players at the moment and sticking and staying as they are. That allows you to think differently. That's a differential in itself if you're already in a strong position, I think, particularly on Aston Villa.
That is a good segue to our next topic, so which is teams and players. So this is where we've got the majority of our questions. So in terms of teams to target, we've got a question from @3Fiddy FPL. Do we bring in Leeds and or Southampton defensive assets for game week 25? James, I'll let you answer that one.
It's not many to choose from in terms of the defensive assets. I think in terms of Leeds, I wouldn't think clever and going anything other than Dallas, which is fine. It feels it's beginning to look a bit expensive for him, but he would be the one to go to. He's obviously playing OOP at the moment. For Saints, I think Vestergaard now is a couple of point 2 or so cheaper than Bednarek, having had the injury, and he was all the rage before he got injured. Cole Walker-Peters' injury at right back would be a little bit concerning. I imagine that Jack Stevens possibly plays out there, but it's a possibility they may even tamper with a back 3 possibly as well, because he kind of finished that way with Bertrand and Gineppo playing as wing backs at the weekend. Neither would overly appeal personally, but it might be that it falls into your structure, right? So it could be that you have, let's say Southampton do have the 3 doubles in a row, and you've currently only got 2 players who defenders are going to have a double in 26. Southampton are suddenly going to appeal, and if that's the case, I think it's Vestergaard's the way to go. For Leeds, it would be Dallas. I wouldn't overcomplicate it.
Rob, anything to add on that, mate?
No, the same. Yeah, the same for me. I'm quite lucky. I've got Bednarek, sitting there already. Yeah, I'm not looking at bringing in another defender for that game. I can't see either team keeping a clean sheet at the moment. So yeah, it's not like with Bednarik. I'm not even expecting miracles to happen. It might happen. So yeah, I wouldn't go out of my way to be bringing him in this week.
Okay, so most of the rest of the questions we got in regards to double game week and kind of strategy is around players specifically. So the first one is from Rob's mate Alex. The question is, for most of the way, it's been prudent to commit the greatest portion of bank to the midfield. This is a really posh question. In recent
I'm still shocked that Rob's got a mate.
In recent weeks, even defensive assets, particularly Man City's, have been prized possessions. But over the next few weeks, it feels like it's going to be worth paying to have the optimal frontmen. Kane, Vardy, Ings, DCL, and even Watkins and Bamford have all been great potential options. Should we start sacrificing top-tier midfielders like KDB, Salah, Sterling, and Mane in favour of strikers?
KDB's obviously already been sacrificed. I think if you're sitting there with Gundogan, 2 City defenders, as long as Gundogan's not out long term, I mean, Rob, I know you own him as well. If he's back by game week 26, I wouldn't be bothered if he missed this weekend. I'd still hold on to him as long as he's back for 26. But I don't think you're shoving that back around to get KDB in. So in the case of Bruno Salah, they're obviously both expendable. And they're both expendable on the assumption that you're highly likely to captain double game week players in the next few weeks. Now, you can captain Bruno Fernandes, for example, against Newcastle this week. You could captain Mohamed Salah against Fulham in game week 27. But in both those cases, we've got teams with exciting doubles. And I think in terms of maximising the potential, that's generally what I'd advise. So I would be captain a Leeds or Southampton doubler over Bruno Fernandes this week because of the possibility of what it could be. And in 27, Man City are highly likely to have a double over Mohamed Salah's fixture against Fulham. So considering if you could have the Villa-Everton doubles in 28 as well, neither play in 29, you're going all the way to at least game week 30 now without captaining neither of these guys. So the theory idea of putting a bit more money up front in the likes of, I mean, I think a popular front three would be something like Kane, Ings, Bamford in the short term. Bamford and Ings for next week. Kane in prep for 26. If Ings has the 3 doubles in a row, he stays. If not, he's probably expendable. And you can obviously jump from a Bamford quite easily to a Watkins in 26 or Calvert-Lewin if we know he's got 26 and 28. But I think the players mentioned, the 6 or so you mentioned, they're the ones. They're the ones. Vardy's an interesting one because Leicester are possibly being a bit overlooked. They've got a double in 26, which is not the worst, in Arsenal at home and Burnley away. And then they've got a couple of nice fixtures in Brighton and Sheffield United after that. So sometimes you can get a bit bogged down. So Leicester's another one where if you're set quite well, I think you can attack them. Whereas if you're not set well for 26, you're likely to overlook them.
I'm in a situation where I've got DCL, Bamford and Antonio. My plan is to kind of get rid of Antonio and bring in Ings. I don't know where then, but the thing is, in 26, I'll then want Kane. So I'm not sure then, do I get rid of DCL if he has a double in 26 and 28 for them, for Kane, or do I then get rid of Bamford for Kane and then bring him back in for 29? Because I have to prepare for that. It's difficult. Okay, so the next question is from FPL Girth. I can't not laugh at that. It looks like Everton have a tough run, so I'm tempted to get rid of DCL and Dean. Which 2 players would be best to bring in, particularly for double game week 26? I'm also planning to bench boost in double game week 26. James?
DCL and Dean. I wouldn't sell them at the moment, honestly. You've got the potential for obviously the double in 26 is likely, the potential double in 28. And that's really frustrating, particularly for Luca Dean owners at the moment. But I would be holding at the moment. Calvert-Lewin's going nowhere for me until I know that he's definitely out for 26. Looks like he's got a good chance to play against Liverpool at the weekend. So honestly, it's frustrating, but I wouldn't be selling yet.
Similar thoughts, Rob?
Yeah. Like you can go, like they could both go off at any time. Yeah, Everton's defences look leaky, but with Dean, you've got that backup of the potential for attacking returns, and yeah, like with those fixtures coming up, yeah, you can't really sell, especially if like you might have other issues elsewhere that you want to attack as well. So yeah, same thoughts for me.
The fixtures look ugly if they're singles. Obviously, Man City tonight, Liverpool the weekend, Southampton's not great, then Chelsea. That bit looks ugly. But once you start dropping perhaps 2 extra fixtures in there, it doesn't look quite as bad as it does currently.
Okay, so next question is from David Strom. Is Kane a good triple captaincy option for double game week 26? Why or why not? Or should we be looking elsewhere like Sun or United/City players?
Probably not, because I'm likely to triple captain him myself, so that means nobody else should. Realistically, yeah, Harry and Sonny are, in my opinion, the 2 best shouts for 26. And I think particularly Harry's got a good historical record against Southampton and Burnley, particularly. I actually think Southampton would be a better fixture for him than Fulham. He scored last season in the same 2 home fixtures. He scored 3 and assisted 1, I think. In the 2 away games played so far this season, he's scored 1 and assisted 5. So, I mean, you'd take over that for double game week returns from a triple captain, wouldn't you? That's going to near enough match Gundogan's haul, for example. I mean, the 1 goal, 5 assists would beat it, wouldn't it? So I don't think we'd necessarily expect that. But Harry also, he's not so fixture dependent. You've also got the reliability with him that he'll play twice. If his legs are attached, he plays. Whereas you look at Bruno and Salah, Bruno's got 2 away fixtures, Chelsea and Palace, which is possibly beneficial actually. But the Palace away fixture sits in between Chelsea and Manchester City. Is there a chance he gets rotated and rested? Palace looks like the sort of fixture at the moment United could possibly do without him. But Salah, not quite those concerns from a rotation perspective. But Sheffield United don't often concede massively, don't let space in behind. Chelsea obviously is an opponent for Salah and Bruno. There's an unpredictability at the moment about what Chelsea will do in those bigger games. Could switch to a back 4, could sit off a bit more, could go and press high. We don't really know what Chelsea are going to do in those big games, so that would put me off of those 2 because there's a lack of knowledge of what will happen in the fixture. Whereas Burnley and Southampton, I think I can be quite sure what I'm going to get from the 2 of them. Against Burnley, you got to score early or it becomes frustrating. But if you do, you can do like what Man City have done to them many times over. And Southampton, we know will potentially leave the space in behind. That's a good possibility for Son, obviously, whereas Burnley's not. But then you would think they're going to be ultra cautious about Son this time, aren't they? Considering what happened last time. And I think that possibly opens up a bit of space for Harry on this occasion. So I would prefer Harry. He's likely going to be my triple captain in 26.
So outside of him getting injured, is there anything that would need to happen? So like this weekend when West Ham beat Tottenham, and Son and Kane don't deliver, will that kind of sway you? Would that be like, oh, do you know what? Actually, I'm not feeling that confident because they're not playing as well, for example.
Yeah, I'll stick it on Antonio away to Man City instead. No, it really wouldn't influence me. A derby game like that, it doesn't have an influence really on what's going to happen before or afterwards.
It's basically a lock then.
As long as he's fit, yeah. The one thing that would maybe put me off actually is obviously an injury to Kane is one, but actually an injury to Son is probably the more likely thing that would put me off. Because I think people can go in tighter on Harry then because they know that ball over the top's not there. So when he spins into holes, people are more likely to go with him because they know you don't have to worry about that pass.
Rob, similar mindset for you, mate?
Yeah. The only thing that could sway me, like if I fancied being a bit maverick, is if the Everton West Brom fixture moves into 26 and they play Southampton and West Brom, and then I might have a look at Calvert-Lewin as some way of really attacking the game week. But yeah, I think a lot of people are going to be on the Kane triple captain if all goes well, and it'll be hard to go elsewhere if there's a large percentage of other managers doing it. So it would be more of a defensive move then to go to Kane. But yeah, if other people are doing it, then you're not going to lose any ground, but you're not going to gain anything. So you'd have to look for gains elsewhere.
You would think at the moment, if you're not going to stick the armband on him, you're almost better looking at a completely different front line of say Ings, Calvert-Lewin, Watkins, something like that. You're going to be losing to his returns if you haven't captained him. I think if you captain him, of course, you're still going to benefit from it. Triple captain massively. I think what you'll find is those with bench boosting will probably by default stick Kane as captain in a lot of cases as well.
Right, next question is from Tala Nadeem. DCL or Antonio, which of them looks a priority sell for Bamford, Ings, Kane? DCL does potentially have doubles coming up, but no clarity on his return. Antonio has probably poor fixtures, but could return before DCL.
It's got to be so Antonio, unfortunately. Don't particularly want to sell him this weekend before Tottenham, then City, Leeds is okay, then United, then the blank. We just have to look at it week to week and say, if Calvert-Lewin has them doubles dropped in, other than 27, he's got the better fixtures between 26 and 28, potentially 5 fixtures over 3. I think you'd have to back that if that's the way it plays out. To be honest, if the fixtures don't work out for Calvert-Lewin the way I think that they might, I'll probably bin both of them.
Yeah, I'm in a similar situation. I've got Antonio and DCL, so I'm probably binning Antonio first.
The problem with Antonio is if you're thinking, I definitely want him in 29, I mean, that's a long period for him to go without not getting a more serious injury or something.
Okay. Next question is from Rob Pick. I can afford Kane in 26 without any other moves, but is bringing Son in for Bruno or Salah worth a -4, or just hold off and bring Son in for Bruno in 27, no free hit 29?
Not an easy one to answer because I'm kind of debating the exact same thing at the moment. I think I'm more likely not to do it. If it's a free transfer, I think Bruno to or Salah to Son is potentially on. From -4 on the game week itself, I'm not convinced that it is because Bruno and Salah, as we know, have the capability to go off. So I wouldn't be convinced of that. I could see me more making the move for free in 27, actually.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Rob, are you thinking the same thing? Because you're thinking about bringing in Son as well, right?
Yeah, and it would, like James, it would have to be for Rob, it would be Bruno or Salah that has to make way, and it's whether it's weighing up that like the fact that Salah or Bruno in 26 could go off. They're both explosive, or whether just holding on because you've got Kane for that kind of cover anyway. Like if you're bringing him in for 26, I think I'm actually more content to sit and wait on the move from Bruno or Salah, because Kane, if Son scores, most of the time it's Kane that's got 3 points out of it anyway. So it's I think I'd hold.
But that's also partly why you want both, really, isn't it? Kane and Son.
It kind of it doubles your return.
To be honest, the other factor obviously in the selling is with Bruno and Salah. It's not easy to answer from the perspective we don't know what value people have got built up in these players. So if you've recently bought, it's easier to sell. If you're up like $1 million on Bruno, it's not easy to just say, oh yeah, sell, because that's cost you 0.5. You spent months building up if you're intending to go back at some stage. And the chances are Bruno and Salah, at some point you are going to want them back. So value is obviously an important issue when you're considering to sell.
Yeah, like myself, I've had Bruno since game week 2, so I've got all that value sitting there, and we've had to find other ways of getting the value this season. So it's also playing on the mind, about do I want to sell him or do I want to hold him until like even through 29, and he'll sit on my bench in 29. It's lots of questions that we kind of need to answer ourselves in the next 2 or 3 weeks.
The last question on strategy and players in this section is from Clean Sheet Wipeout. What are the top 5 picks for the double game week when on a wild card? So I'd assume that's wild card for 26 on 26.
Kane, Son, Martinez, Grealish, Watkins. Boring that, isn't it? But it probably is, because if you're going through to 29 as well, it probably is the 2 Tottenham and the 3 Villa.
Yeah,
Rob, what's yours?
That's what I'd be doing.
Yeah, mine would probably be the same. Yeah, I think those 5 will generally be like the template for wildcarders, and then people will then find their differentials around that they fancy for the next few weeks. But yeah, I don't think you can go anywhere else other than that. Yeah,
If you're on a wild card this week, would that change? So there'll be a lot of people that are on a wild card now and are bench boosting in 26. Would that be different for you, or it's still same 5?
I think it would be the same, to be honest. The only difference with that is obviously you're probably prepping to a bench boost. So then you're thinking a little bit different. So then your reliability on things like the Everton fixtures, the Southampton fixtures probably feels a little bit different. Whereas in 26, if you're wildcarding then, you're obviously not going to bench boost. You can be a little bit cute with some of your picks. I think if I was wildcarding 26, Leicester would definitely be more on my radar because it's got a good double and 2 good fixtures afterwards. You could be cute about potentially even an Arsenal player, thinking about beyond. So from 29 onwards, leave that on the bench for a couple of weeks if you want. Wolves, longer term, cheap one defensively, just to sit on the bench as 3rd sub every week. Someone like Pedro Neto. If you've got money to burn, Pedro Neto as a 5th midfielder, because they've got a brilliant run from 31. So you need to just think a little bit longer if you're 26. Whereas in 25, your focus is going to be so drawn towards that bench boost 26. And then the difficult conundrum is Leeds. What you do with it. Are you happy to have the singles and the doubles? Are you going without? Do you have a plan to -4 off 2 of them? What's the impact of Southampton's fixtures? Those are going to affect your final decisions this week, which in Southampton's case, we haven't got the answers yet.
Yeah, I mean, if you were wildcarding this week, you could easily like drop Bamford in there and then switch him over to Watkins next week, then, cause as long as you set out your team right, where you can still get to the right amount of players for next week, because you're kind of wasting a transfer, as it were, if you're going from one blank game week player to another blank game week player. You kind of want generally your moves to be someone that's not playing in blank game week 29, and then to someone that is playing. So yeah, if you're happy to use that transfer to attack both this week and next week, then I think that could be a way forward.
You could definitely, for example, I mean, a good case example might be if you're wildcarding now, you go exactly what you say, go say Bamford and Rafinha, and perhaps you set out that your idea for 26 would be a -4 for, say, Gundogan and Watkins. Obviously, leave enough money in the bank, for example. The chance Gundogan doesn't play this weekend. I would have the Villa guys already set, because the worst, you could get yourselves into a position where you decide that's what you're doing, but you pick up a couple of injuries, and suddenly you're thinking -8, -12, and you get in a panic. And then where you want to be from there is your worst case scenario is, okay, I'll play the Leeds players in the single fixture. So you can't think too much. I wouldn't be planning more than a -4 for 26. There's a couple of injuries, and quickly you're looking at -12. And then, to be honest, the points you want from a bench boost, you need to be getting near a 30, really, when you're taking that sort of hit.
Okay, well, I think we've covered that in some great detail, the strategy and players to get in. We've got a few more questions, so let's get them covered. The first one is from @Sajjan Shah.
Oh, hello.
For you, James.
Who the fucking hell are you?
When was the last time Spurs played West Ham in the league, and even if Spurs win, they stay below West Ham?
Don't know, game week 5 maybe. I don't know where we were in the league come game week 5. I can't remember, mate. Not a clue. No idea. It's probably happened very early in the season, 1 year or so, isn't it?
Right, the next question's from @StewLord. For you, James, what is your favourite pancake topping?
Oh, I'm quite basic like that. I'm a bit of lemon juice and sugar. You don't have to overdo it. But then you go to like these American places and that, and that, and that. Whack on all the chocolate sauce you can get and all that. But yeah, at home it would just be lemon and sugar. Actually, quite simplistic. Dull bastard, don't I?
Favorite jam and sugar. No, jam and sugar,
It's got,
lemon and sugar,
it's,
or chocolate spread. Bit of
yeah, it's
chocolate
got to be
spread on there.
Nutella and bananas for me, and some whipped
Yeah.
cream, mate, and some nuts on top.
Rob's just got jam on the brain after his game week.
Yeah, just jam all the way.
Another question for you, James, from FPL_Glasto. Screw FPL as James talk about Champman. How's he doing this year? Players he is looking at in the next few weeks.
I ain't got a clue. I bought Henri last week. That should sum it up for you, shouldn't I? I'm about 350 or 400, something like that. I know Arsenal got a double game week coming up in that, so that's the
Fingers
target.
crossed.
I bought Henri in last week in prep for that. Well, could it be off, Rob?
Yeah, it could be off if I think they've got a League Cup fixture, and if they play Liverpool in the League Cup, if they beat Liverpool, then their double game weeks off gets moved to later in the season.
So why haven't you told me this?
You got to watch the streams. It's not my job to tell you. Speak to Tala.
I'll be having a word with that boy.
I just sort the data out.
And we've got a last one from, and this is more of a comment than a question, from FPL Binger. Can't wait to hear what you sound like on someone else's pod.
I'm guessing I sound the same.
Yeah, probably.
Unless these bastards have done something with my voice, which is possible, I guess.
Chipmunk.
Yeah, exactly. So that's all the questions covered. Before we wrap up, let's talk through our provisional plans for the next week and captaincy options. James, let's talk with you first. What's kind of your thinking? Who you're going to bring in and who you captaining this week?
It's very dependent on Southampton and rearrangements is the first thing. And I could not tell you till I know that. If Southampton have the 3 double game weeks in a row, I could even buy 3 of them potentially this week. It depends how it falls. If neither Fulham or West Brom have got a double in 26, but Southampton do, I could end up buying Alex McCarthy. Obviously, I'd play him this week. In the next 3 weeks, then 28, and then I've got Areola back again to cover me in 29. That would be that thinking. Danny Ings, I'm almost definitely going to buy, in fairness, for Antonio. I've got more money than I can imagine in the bank at the moment. 7.8 million in the bank. So Antonio to Ings is not going to put any holes in that. And I am considering at the moment Ward-Prowse or Armstrong. Ward-Prowse in itself, 3 doubles, is 12 points guaranteed. He plays every minute of every game. So even with no returns, he's picking me up 4 points every week. If Southampton don't have the double in 26, I think I will go Antonio to Ings still. And I think I will likely go Souček possibly to Rafinha. Gundogan if he's ruled out for longer. That would be my thinking at the moment. Captain is definitely going to be Patrick Bamford for me.
Okay. Rob?
At the moment, very much in the air. But I think it's either going to be it's likely to either be Loughton out or Souček out. I'm unsure whether I want to attack this game week, and if I do, then I'd actually go Souček to Rafinha, and kind of attack this game week coming up. But if I don't, then I'd go Loughton to sort of another cheap defender for someone like Konsa, someone that's going to see me through into 29. But again, I could potentially like roll this week if I wanted to. It's actually been I've never known myself to struggle to use transfers, and I've rolled a transfer the last 3 or 4 game weeks now. I'm really struggling to be able to try and use it. I think it's the first time in a long time where I've been quite content with my team, and I'm getting this like a different headache for once, which is quite nice. But yeah, I'm leaning towards doing Souček to Rafinha to attack the double. It will mean a -4 down the end of the line to get the 11 for game week 29, but I think with the gains I've made this week, I'm quite happy to do that.
To be honest, in game week 29, if you're going into game week 29 with less than 9, you almost should be taking a -4, particularly if it's for attacking players, because the appearance points will just level out the hit in itself. So if you're going into 29 with less than, if you say you're going in with 9, particularly if you're filling 2 attacking spots, you should take a -4 to get yourself the 11, I believe.
I'm probably doing Antonio for Ings this week. That's probably my most likely move, and then captaining Bamford or Ings. I'm just not sure who yet, but yeah, probably.
I might flip a coin
Probably.
on Bamford or Ings. Probably be Bamford.
I think the answer to that probably is that it depends what you want to do with your game week. If you're happy with where you are, mini league position, overall, whatever be it, if you're quite happy with your rank and you want to protect, Bamford is the safer call. Its effective ownership is likely to be the highest. I imagine he'll be the most captain this week. Although Bruno's numbers weren't particularly low last week, there was still a number of people who did captain him and will do again this week. Whereas Ings is going to be a great little differential for you. And from that perspective, I wouldn't rule out Rafinha as well if you want a differential captain this week. Boy's on fire.
Is Bamford going to be your number one captaincy option this week on the stream, James?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's a wrap, guys. James, it's been a pleasure having you on. We both really appreciate it. The time's gone really quick. Before we go, do you want to tell people where everyone can find you? Talk a little bit about your pod and give your patron a bit of a plug, mate.
I'm not plugging Patreon here. Shall I?
You can if you want, mate.
Yeah, my name's James. You know that by now. You can follow me on Twitter at Planet FPL Pod. I do a podcast once or twice or 10 times a week with Sujan Shah, mainly on FPL, but sometimes on some other things. We cover Sky Fantasy as well. We put out a podcast every midweek day and another every weekday on Patreon as well. I don't want to sell what's on offer and bloody Patreon. It's your show, mate. You can www.patreon.com. In fact, that might even be the other way around. Kill me. I think it's patreon.com/Planet FPL. Blinding, isn't it?
and me and Rob are both patrons of yours, so we can.
That's the only reason I'm on your show. So if anybody wants me to guest on their show, sign up to Patreon. Guys, you're doing a great job with yours as well. Crack on, doing really well.
Thank you.
Cheers for coming on. Yeah, it's like if for those that haven't heard or seen James, definitely check out what he's got to offer. There's so much content, and it's all like really interesting. Like, I find some of the non-fantasy stuff extremely interesting. It's great. Like keeps me sane when I'm sitting at my kitchen table every day working. So yeah, it's great stuff.
Indeed. Right. Thanks for tuning in. We are a new pod, so any feedback is really important to us. You can find us on Twitter at FPL_happy hour. We're also on Spotify and a number of other podcasts, and our YouTube channel FPL Happy Hour. Please like, subscribe, and share, and all your retweets on Twitter are really appreciated. So until then, have a great game week, and may your arrows be green. Good night.
Cheers, guys.